welcome to another episode of This Podcast Fits Your Macros. It's me, Coach Caileen, the Macro Queen, and across the way we got Coach Ryan. How are you doing today, Coach Ryan?
Doing good. Another day in the office. How you doing, Caileen?
Yes, doing good. It's weird because it's Monday, and we usually record on Tuesdays.
We shifted up a bit. You know, I'm probably still going to shift it up on you. So, you know, I like to keep Caileen on her toes. I find that her content becomes, you know, it becomes more scary when it's out of nowhere, right? So,
I know we just pulled this topic out of our ass, but it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it will be good. Tell everybody what the topic is. Yeah, let's make sure that everybody knows why they're hanging out today.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about good and I don't want to say bad, but I will say bad sources of protein. Yeah. Protein is one of the most important macronutrients if you want to gain muscle. So it's important that, you know, I won't go too into depth, but you want to listen to this one.
Yeah, we'll cover that in a sec. Basically, optimal and least optimal proteins, we could say.
There we go.
We'll give you the overview why it's important and then hit you with our list that is going to hopefully help you make some freaking gains, folks. That's what we do. Yeah. That's what this show's all about. So if you're not subscribed here, you better do that. Hang out with us. We got a lot of episodes coming. All right, Caileen, first though, is it worth the macros, or because I rushed you into this one, you don't have it?
You know I do.
What do you know? How could she ever miss it, folks? She would never miss it. What's that?
There's a new flavor of Oreo. You know,
looks like something orange.
It is fall season, so it's pumpkin spice flavored Oreos.
Yeah, what is with this pumpkin spice?
It's for all the basic bitches. Let me just upset half of the listeners, maybe even 75%, and say that apple flavors trump pumpkin flavors 100%. I'm not into this pumpkin hype, but I figured some of y'all might be, and you might be wondering about how these pumpkin spice flavored Oreos were. So
as you being an Oreo aficionado that we know you are, do they do that same flavor every year? Or is that just this new? Is it brand new?
You know, I don't remember trying it before, but I also have tried a lot of Oreos, so it's possible.
You have definitely been down the Oreo journey. There is no doubt about that.
Does that make me a Horeo? I just came up with that.
Just might. You know what? You should put that on a shirt probably or something.
Oh, man.
That could probably sell. If you guys want that shirt, drop it in the comments. Okay, well, so this is pumpkin spice Oreo. What is the macros?
Oh, typical Oreo macros.
Same Oreo macros? They just somehow make some fancy artificial flavorings?
Yeah, the fat's the same. 7 grams for 2 cookies. Carbs.
That's how you know you're an aficionado, when you know the exact fat content of a normal Oreo.
You know me, my fats are usually the quickest to go, so I usually am like, shit. But now, not these days, but we can talk about that in another podcast. But the carbs are 20 grams, which I feel like normal Oreos might be 22. And then less than 1 gram of protein. So let's try it out. You can see my family got to them beforehand.
There's 4 left in there for those of you listening.
5. There's 5. There's going to be 4 left after this. But yeah, family.
They're actually 0 by the end of the podcast. You'll just be sneaking them through the show.
It smells good. So if you're not watching on the podcast, it's like the golden Oreo crust with an orange filling that looks like pumpkin pie. So
golden Oreo look always freaks me out. I'm just gonna say it. It scares me.
It's not my favorite. Some people are obsessed with the golden Oreo, but I'm like, nah, give me the real deal. Except for in the peanut butter pie Oreo, then it slaps.
Does it taste any different than the?
I mean, yeah, because I think the regular Oreos are with a Dutch cocoa mix, which is a very specific flavor. So anyway, let's get this on. Okay, that's pretty good.
That's a noise of liking it there, folks.
Yeah, you know, I'm not a huge pumpkin person, but that's pretty tasty. My family was dipping them in cream cheese frosting like they needed to be any more fatty, and they said that was really good.
Cream cheese frosting mixed with that.
We had it from the cheat truck, and so Brad's like, oh, you know, it would be really good because, you know, Brad fucking needs cream cheese frosting on top of his Oreos. But he did it anyway, and he's like, oh, that's really good. And then Nora was like, oh, I want to try that. So apparently, if you want to go super fatty, you can put cream cheese frosting on top, and it's really good. But
yeah, what are the macros on that, you know? We should figure that out. That's probably That's some bulking food right there, folks. You're trying to get the bulk on this winter. Dip your Oreos in cream cheese frosting, right? Come on now.
Yeah.
That's like the Go Mad diet.
Yeah, right. Jesus Christ. It was, I hope we are out of cream cheese frosting. But yeah, no, these are pretty good. Gets you in the fall mood. I'd give it like an 8 out of 10.
Wow. That may be one of the highest ratings yet, folks. And, leave it to Oreos to do that job out here. So wait, I want to ask you a question since you have the package. Is there anything that is an actual pumpkin in there, or is it totally just chaotic, I mean, I don't imagine, is pumpkin flavoring actually pumpkin? Or is it just this trickery, right? Like,
it's
people get tricked into thinking that it is pumpkin. Because, I mean, I don't know. I've never made anything with pumpkin.
Zero pumpkin.
What's the closest thing to pumpkin? Something that starts with a P. Is there anything that starts with a P?
Natural and artificial flavor.
There's probably the pumpkin. There's the pumpkin.
Include cinnamon. Boom.
How do people get away with that? How do these, these food corps get away with that? It's the real question. What is a natural flavoring? Because that's on everything.
Yeah.
Right? How do you constitute that?
Side note, a great book to read about that, The Dorito Effect by Mark Schatzer, talks all about it. I really enjoyed that one. If you want to dive deep into the world of natural and artificial flavors, I'm saying in figure quotes here. So yeah.
Yeah, because I know there's one that's like a vanilla one or something, right? You know that?
Oh, Oreo
that whole thing?
Or the flavoring?
There's like a natural flavoring that's vanilla flavoring that comes from like beaver's anal glands.
I was going to say like skunk asshole or something.
Yeah. Like, who knew that? Right? That's what it should say on there. Did you say skunk asshole? It should say that on the ingredients, right? It should be like, hey, you know what? Oreos includes skunk asshole, right? Like, you should know this. Why doesn't anybody? I don't know. Natural flavoring, though, right?
Money talks.
Yeah, I guess it does. Well, we're totally off topic per usual, so let's rein it in. Pumpkin Oreos are on the list there as a higher ticket for the macro items. Send us your macro items. I don't know if you've been getting any, Caileen, but hit Caileen on Instagram with your macro items, and she will bring them to the show. Even though she's on prep, we will still find a way. She will suffer. She will suffer for the people eating pumpkin Oreos as part of her macros for the day. So let's dive in. Now, we're talking about protein sources, what's most optimal, what is maybe least optimal. But why is protein important, Caileen? Let's just let people... because it really is one of these things that kind of encompasses every goal, in any diet, whether you're high fat, you're high carb, you're whatever, or you have no diet, right? Like protein is still this kind of constant, I find, right?
Yeah. There's so many reasons you want to keep a lot of protein in your diet. Most of us, if you're listening to this podcast, probably want to build some muscle. So if you don't know the basic foundation of a muscle, it's like a bunch of proteins wrapped together from amino acids, which how do you get those amino acids? They are from the protein you eat. So you need a steady supply of protein to build that muscle. And we've already talked on millions of podcasts about how satiating protein is as something to eat, So if you're having troubles like staying full, protein is a really great way to stay full because it's going to keep you satiated. But everybody needs to build muscle depending on no matter what your goals are. Whether you're 60 years old listening to this podcast, you're probably not. But if you are premenopausal, postmenopausal, perimenopausal, if you're like a kid, you still need a fuck ton of protein, way more than you're probably eating already. It is crazy how little protein somebody eats. And if you don't already track your food, one of my favorite things to do for someone, especially starting out, is to just track what you're eating in MyFitnessPal. No goals or anything, just go about your day tracking. And I think you will be shocked at how little protein you eat. Now, for normal people, there's been so many different numbers thrown around about how much protein you should eat. Sometimes it's like 0.7 per 1 pound of your body. Sometimes it's 1, we push the limits as far as how much protein we eat because I want max gains, but I feel like you should definitely strive for at least 1 gram per pound, at least. If you can do more than that, cool. But it's very important for everything. Yes,
it is. And it is, for those of you out there that want to lose weight, burn fat, and you're like, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I don't want the muscles. You still do want the protein because it does help you burn fat too. Build muscle helps you burn fat too, folks. So there's a lot of things that come with the protein. And again, like I said, it's one of those constant variables. For people that don't even have a diet, they will likely encounter a health issue that requires them to eventually pay attention to protein, over time. That's what ends up happening. So, I mean, protein is a constant. It's not only just your muscles. It builds a lot of things in your body. So it's overall health and wellness, functionality, everything you need to be successful at your goals, but also in your fucking life, folks. So protein is important. Now let's talk about this. Caileen has designed us a fancy list, a hierarchy, analytical. Caileen probably over there with a whiteboard for the past 2 hours. And if this one goes here and that one goes there and this.
Oh, no, wait, switch.
This binds to that atom and that one chain. Okay. But if we're upside down, it's here. Okay. So we got a list of are we starting with the best sources or are we starting with the worst?
Or should we go?
No, that's fine. Yeah, we'll start with the best, what we think is the best. These are our opinions, by the way, folks. Yes. So if you're a protein psychopath out there somewhere and you're like, no, I don't care what you think. This is our opinions and this is our damn podcast. So here's our opinions in our hierarchy of what we do think is most optimal sources of protein, which will, for the most part, give you the most bang for your buck, right? For everything, down to what we don't think is the most optimal, but, protein's protein, folks. So, Caileen, start us in.
All right. So the best ideal situation for you to be ingesting your protein is if it is coming from an organic, pasture-raised animal of some sort, maybe grass-fed / finished. There's many reasons why you want to do this. These farming practices usually have the animals at less stress, so they're going to be better cuts of meat. They're going to just be a lot more sanitary as well because you can only produce so much cows. You can only have so many cows. There's lots of regulations with something being branded organic, regeneratively grown, all these things. It's going to come out with less omega-6s too, especially in the beef department because, and we can dive deep into this, a lot of inflammation comes from an imbalance of omega-6s to omega-3s. So some of the red meats have a lot of omega-6s. So if you're eating a lot of red meats, you might find yourself at more of a chronic inflammatory state. So when we go to more organic, pasture-raised, regeneratively farmed cows, you get less of those omega-3s, which puts you in more of a better balance for your omega-6 to omega-3s. But obviously, this is going to come at a fairly substantial cost. Sometimes it's not that much more expensive to get the organic, pasture-raised, whatever, grass-fed beef compared to regular. And I'm not just saying beef for all this. This is great for chickens too. When your chickens are, just fucking running around like Mary Poppins in a field eating bugs and shit instead of whatever corn that they're being fed for most, they're going to come out a lot happier. I can tell you personally. So I do not do organic for everything. I would love to, absolutely. But I think it would be more than my mortgage with the amount of protein our family eats to eat that many organic pasture-raised. But lately, over the past couple of years, my chicken is a non-negotiable. It has to be organic, pasture-raised because you can fucking tell the difference in the quality when you eat it, man. Sometimes the chicken is so rubbery and gross. Sometimes if I didn't plan my orders right, because I have it shipped from all whatever fucking grocery delivery shit. But if I run out and I have to buy it from the regular store, I'm just this tastes like fucking rubber. I eat a lot of chicken, so I'm I don't want to be eating rubber ass chicken. It is worth it for me to invest in the organic pasture-raised chicken where the chickens are happy. And yeah, same goes for eggs and shit too. If you've never gotten organic pasture-raised eggs from a chicken and compared it to the normal cheap eggs on the shelf, the yolk colors are just completely different. You can tell it's a nice happy hen when the yolk is that beautiful golden orange compared to the normal freaking eggs are just yellow, maybe so pale yellow. It's wait, that, after doing so many organic eggs, and when you open a regular one, you're what the fuck is wrong with this?
Yeah, it is true. There's definitely. So do you put a hierarchy in meat choices, Caileen, at all? Do you say this type of meat is better than this type of meat for any protein, or you do not?
I mean, I used to when I was a lot lower fat, because there was no way I was fitting steaks in my macros. But yesterday I ate a 10-ounce ribeye and that fit in my macros just fine. So I will continue to
10
eat.
ounces, though. That's too small. 10 ounces.
10 ounces.
They even make them that small? Damn.
They do.
A tiny little cow running around. No.
It's bikini size.
Yeah, there you go. That's the bikini cow. That's where that one came from. So you're saying mostly it's got to fit with your goals, right? So macros do have some level of importance here, right? When we're talking about all these different things, because I mean, obviously, like Caileen just uses the analogy of a ribeye, there's going to be a good chunk of fat in that ribeye beast compared to, chicken breast or something of that nature that is another common protein choice, It blows my mind how many damn stores are selling like so many different kinds of chicken breasts. I'm like, where is all this coming? Where are you guys getting all these? What's the difference here? But, that's a topic for another time. Point is, you got to kind of know your goal in some cases, to your hierarchy of protein. So, Caileen, do you think that red meat is better than, poultry or something of that nature? You think protein doesn't matter, whatever? What do you think? I want to know what you think.
In what opinion you're talking, because as far as tastefulness goes, I fucking love red meat over chicken. But for longevity's sake, and people are gonna at me at this, I don't care. Like, eating a shit ton of red meat isn't necessarily the best for longevity's sake, just because of the inflammatory factors that you do get. It's a little bit less with the poultry, the fish, wild caught fish, things like that, but we all know, like, fish didn't even enter the chat until just now because, I don't eat fish. I eat very few fishes, if you're just tuning in now. But, red meat is great, but honestly, it's really expensive too. So for me personally and my budget, I'd rather go with like the turkeys and the chickens just because I feel like I would love to fucking eat a ribeye every day. Actually, not right now. It would really suck because I did have to save a lot of my fats for that. It was like 56 grams of fat for that fucker, which, I'm at like 90. So it's like, it's not like I was starving the whole day, but like, it was so good. Brad smoked it and then like flame boiled it. It was delicious. But anyway, so from a longevity standpoint, I do try to limit my red meat a little bit, and focus primarily on the chicken and the turkey. If I ate fish, I would try to include a lot more of that. Oh, if you can force yourself to eat like mackerel and like anchovies and shit, that's a great source of omega-3s, but I will never fucking do that because that's disgusting, and I will pay to swallow pills of omega-3s because I can't even think about eating like sardines. Do you eat any of that weird shit?
No, I'm not a big fisher, but also fish is a hard one because it is, everybody has very strict things that they say about steak or beef or chicken, like you have, right? But talking about these different practices, all this and that. With fish, there really isn't that because people don't look that much into it, I find, right? Like a lot of people don't know the difference between this piece of salmon at the store or that piece of salmon, even though they're two entirely different animals. And one of them has dye in it to make it look, orange. And one of them is the way it, came from the ocean. So and then, you got to think of how screwed up, not to sound like a freaking psycho hippie guy, but like you got to think of how screwed up the oceans are at this point. Oof. And what the fish are dealing with that they are ingesting, they got like that garbage island. What's that?
Microplastics up the butt.
Yes, they got garbage island. I don't even know what it's called. You know what I'm talking about? That giant
floating
island.
It's like the size of fucking. Is it the United
bigger than
States?
Texas?
Is it bigger than Texas? Okay, I was going to say Texas.
Some,
but I was like, wait.
That's just one island of garbage floating around in the ocean. It's just sitting there dispersing. And these animals are growing up in there. These fish are eating this. I mean, or the radioactivity. Like, if you guys want to go crazy, and I mean, I don't want to get crazy. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to hold myself back.
We're trying to keep it real, Dan.
But if you go look at that, like, you remember that Fukushima thing that happened a while back?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, and then all these fish that started growing like 3-4 heads and were born without eyes and didn't have... And nobody talked about this. Nobody talked about it. And that thing was just dumping chemicals into the ocean. It still is to this day, I think, right? Like, at least the last time I looked. And don't quote me, folks. I haven't looked into it in a while. But, it was definitely, and all that's just going right there. And then people go in the store, buy the fish and shit. Maybe it had 3 heads. Maybe I'm being dramatic. But the point is, It's not that regulated. It's not that, because I mean, what's happening here? They go fish, they catch some fish, they pull them in, they say, hey, let's put this on a thing. If that happened with like cows or chicken or eggs or anything, people lose their mind. They'd be like, wait, you found this cow out in the woods and you're just feeding me it? You don't know what's going. What about is there parasites in here? Was it cleaned correctly? Did you do this and that? Is this good? But nobody does that with fish, right? And like everybody's seen the things of fish at even big name retailers that have live parasites in them and stuff. And they're like, oh, just cook it. Just cook it to the correct temp. Maybe I don't want to eat a parasite corpse, folks. Maybe I don't want that, right?
You know my fear of parasites. You know. You know.
Especially you being the gut specialist, right? You know what these things.
By the way, if you eat like a ton of fish, especially sushi, you need to DM me because we need to talk about a parasite cleanse for you because you have parasites. Pretty much. Yeah,
definitely. And that's the thing, sushi too, right? A lot of people love sushi. A lot of people don't love paying for sushi. So here's the thing. People look for the cheapest sushis they can get. You know, if you're buying sushi at the grocery store, I don't know what you've done, but it doesn't make sense to me or like I've seen sushi at the gas station. Sometimes you go into that awful little convenience store and somehow there's sushi in there. Who's made this sushi? Where did it come from? Did it come on the same truck that brought the gas here? Where is it? And then, people are eating that. And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be a difference here. And maybe there's not. Maybe this is the naivety of me in the sushi industry. But I imagine if you go to the restaurant, you got to pay $40 for a roll. It's not the same quality fish that's at the 7-Eleven. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
We need a sushi specialist to come on here and
we need anybody listening that's a sushi specialist that can come in here and talk about. But you know what? I have actually seen some sushi videos on like YouTube of like sushi chefs, and they cut out the parasites and they just move on. Like they're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of parasites in this one. Slice, boom, and they just leave those pieces. And it's like, okay, well maybe that works. Maybe I don't know. Either way. Fish ain't making it on my list.
No, not mine either. It's worth stating also, I actually, speaking of sushi chefs, I had one of my athletes who did sushi chefs type thing. That is a tongue twister, by the way. So try saying sushi chef 5 times fast. Yep. Anyway, she was one of those people. And the different cuts of salmon drastically change as far as macros go, too. She was enlightening me about because I fucking had no clue because I don't eat that shit. But she's like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
See, nobody's talking about that. But like a ribeye steak versus a New York strip steak versus a top round, all totally different macros, all totally different results, proteins, fat.
Yeah.
That's happening with fish, but nobody's looking at it. And, you don't buy fish with the cuts of fish in mind. You don't. Yeah. You're like, oh, like if you buy a pack of frozen salmon or something, what'd you get? What is this? It's all just, who knows? Maybe it's not even salmon, folks. We don't know. Right? Have you ever dived down the tilapia train, Caileen?
I'm not doing that. No, I don't have any reason to.
You've never dove down the tilapia train?
Literally, tilapia just gives me the heebie-jeebies to begin with, so there's no way. Like, I would never research that because it doesn't even come up on my list of things to eat.
Well, you know what the freaky thing is about researching tilapia? And I'm just giving people so many gems today.
This actually came
they're like taking notes. I'm going to do this after the show. Or Ryan's totally lost his mind. Nobody knows yet. But if you start diving down the tilapia train, it is hard to find tilapia that actually exist. Okay? Yeah. Hear what I said, right? Like you start to go look at tilapia fish. It's like maybe a food industry created fish because it's not actually a fish. Like you cannot find actual fish that are tilapia, and there's no pictures of them. People don't have this shit. It's kind of weird. I know it sounds crazy.
So, if your coach is prescribing tilapia 5 times a day, you need to get a new coach.
Exactly. Get rid of that coach, because if this is news to you, go dive down. And I mean, I've done this several times because I'm like, there's got to be something. But there really isn't. There's like weird, arbitrary. It's weird. And, the ongoing theory is it's just many different kinds of fish that they bundle it up and say whatever, because that's why it's so cheap. That's why it's like imitation crab meat, like I've seen people tracking that in my clients over the years. I'm like, what you doing here?
I did see that getting made in a factory, and that's fucking disgusting. I saw
that's not even crab. It's fake. It's not crab. They take a bunch of chunks of fish and they compress it and dye one side of it and say it's crab. And then, you don't know what's going on with that. Again, it's a little wild. the seafood
jump
world.
ahead and say that that's part of the not as great proteins to eat.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about fish, but it ain't making it very high on my list. You know, if you could get, let's say this. Let's say if you could get some real deal, you know, decent fish, I don't know, maybe you're a fisherman, you went and caught it yourself. I imagine, I don't know for sure, but I imagine it's got to be better. It's definitely better than food industry fish, let's be honest. And like, you know, what are those things called? Like the farm fish, right? Anybody ever seen these things? Ooh. Another thing for you to Google if you guys are on the podcast listening, you're like, Ryan's losing his shit today. You know, go look up the farming process for salmon. Like when you see the salmon at the store and it looks all good and it says farm salmon, go look at the conditions those things are in. It's basically a puddle with a freaking, you know, net around it, and they throw these balls of dye into the water to make sure the fish meat turns orange before they feed it to you. It's crazy, folks. It's crazy stuff, and it's all out, and nobody knows about it. So now you do. Now you've got a little insight into the. See, this is why I lose my mind, folks. I got to get on these podcasts to come back to reality. Otherwise, I sit in my house and I look at the ceiling and I'm like, salmon, it's all poison. What do we do?
What the fuck is tilapia?
What is tilapia? Who made it? Isn't that a WWE wrestler's name? I don't know. You know, the truth is, it's a wild world, folks. Okay, let's get back to the list. So you don't have anything between. You think less red meat, okay? What about like pork and stuff? Where do you put pork in there? Because I mean, pork is like a man. You know, that's another one people buy a lot. Bacon. Who doesn't love a little bacon, right? You like bacon?
Oh, I do love bacon. I do. The good kind, obviously, not like the shit little paper thin shit ready to eat crap. Anyway.
Oh yeah. The already cooked bacon.
Oh my God, yeah.
We cooked it for you.
Mother-in-law used to get that, and it killed me because my daughter would actually prefer that versus like, you know, the thick center cut bacon that we would make, and she'd be like, no, I like grandma's bacon better, and I'm like, oh, what the hell? Anyway,
I still don't understand how they do that even.
I again, probably something we don't want to know about,
something we should Google. Ooh. That's my next Google.
There we go. That's gonna be our next rant. Why your bacon isn't real. No, but okay. So pork. I actually do enjoy pork every once in a while. It is, along with red meat, I didn't even talk about the digestibility of red meat. It's a little harder on the gut to digest. So especially during our protocols, the first 3 weeks, we actually encourage no red meat because we're actually putting the gut through some trauma and we want to be nice to it. But pork is in that same situation. It's a little harder to digest. So I throw it in there every once in a while, but I think it's a great alternative to turkey and chicken because it is on the leaner side for the most part. However, pork is very oftenly inhumanely raised. So, and you know, there's all the question of where it's from. Some countries have very much so laxer restrictions on how they treat their animals and things like that. So if you can find a good quality, we go again back to if you can get organic, pasture-raised, you know, pork that was humanely killed, like that's going to probably cost you a lot of money, but be delicious compared to, you know, whatever else is going on. But there's just like, lots of shenanigans that happen with pork farming, unfortunately. So if you can get yourself a good source of it, go for it. Do you like pork? You probably don't even, do you pork?
No, not really. I mean, I really don't. I find I don't like most of it. Bacon. I mean, who doesn't like bacon? But I don't like, you know, like they got like pork loin and shit like that. I hate that shit.
I love pork tenderloin.
I'm like, what the heck am I eating here? It's like, I don't know. I just don't. It's not my thing. That's the thing too, folks. You know, you don't just go change your protein sources because we said something might be a little better. Whatever's going to be better for you is going to be pretty individual, right? Whatever you like. You know, Caileen could tell me pork loin is the greatest thing on earth for this and that. And I'd be like, go fuck yourself, because I'm not going to eat that. And if I told Caileen, hey, you got to start eating salmon 3 times a day, she'd be like, go fuck yourself, because that's not going to be the best thing for us, right? Ugh. At the end of the day, we got to get what's going to work for us, you know, and that's the same for you. So if you really like something that we put on we haven't even moved down the list yet into the bad zones, but we'll start. But Caileen, I already know, right? We said first thing that we think is most optimal is meat. I already know there's people out there that are listening that are the vegans and the veggies that are like, hey, you know, one, they probably all think we're wrong with that, which great, you know, we can have different opinions, folks. Right. And then 2, they're probably like, there's a ton of great vegan sources. So let's talk a little bit about vegan and vegetarian protein sources. Where do these fall on our list here, your list?
They're below animal proteins, in my opinion, but they do have their place in time. Yeah, I'm one that I will cook up a whole tofu thing every once in a while, because again, chicken and turkey every day gets super monotonous. And sometimes it's like, oh, tofu, that's like a little treat almost. Lentils, legumes of sorts. Like I love incorporating beans, chickpeas, peas in general. My affinity for peas. If you're on my Instagram, I'm eating peas like almost every single day because they have like a tiny little bit of protein and it's like super easily digestible. But the one thing about plant proteins is that they're always going to come at least with a carb, component to it. And sometimes even a fat component too. So like soybeans, edamame, those are going to be a little bit more fatty compared to, like the chickpea, although chickpeas have a fair amount of fat too, but they're all going to have carb and fat components. So you'll never be able to get like just pure protein, which makes it a little trickier when you get down to macros, because most of us, the carbs come down a little bit. So it gets to the point where it's like, okay, how do I make this work? And I know a lot of actually pro bikini competitors who are vegan and vegetarian will start to even include like egg whites as a protein source, only because it just becomes like almost impossible to hit the macros that you need when you're vegan, when you get that close to prep. I mean, it's possible, but it is like lots of wizardry happening. And then, sometimes it's just easier to just, bend the guidelines a little bit. But, some people are super strict. I have a client who was struggling with this a little bit. And every single time I'm just like, hey, have you thought about maybe just some egg whites? And she's like, absolutely not. So I'm like, okay, we'll make this work still. But, that's an option as well. What are your opinions on the vegan proteins?
Well, I think that, veganism or vegetarianism is a choice of diet. So if you've made that choice of diet, then you have to choose within that realm what's going to be the best options for you, right? And that goes down a whole hierarchy of, okay, is it a whole food source or is it a processed food source? Is it this or is this invented? Is this in a box or did it come on a shelf out here or whatever, So there's a whole bunch of things there. The bioavailability of things becomes more of an issue for vegans and vegetarians. And for those of you that are like, Ryan doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. I've coached a lot of vegans, vegetarians. I also coach a lot of people that eat, standard American diet, if you will, and carnivores and ketos and all the things in between. Right. So I know all about what I'm talking about here with these things. And when it comes to that, it really does come down to, again, making sure that you have the right food choices. So you do have to do a lot of the same thing that you do no matter what, where you got to say, okay, what are my macros going to be? What am I going to hit? Okay, great. What's going to fit there? What do I want to eat? How do I fit it? How do I get here and there? And, you can hit any goal, proteins, carbs, fats, with a plant-based diet as well. The question then becomes, is it most optimal? Which then you have to say, if you've made a dietary choice to only eat that way, and that's working for you and you're enjoying it and you can hit your macros, then the answer is yes, right? Like maybe you don't need to have anything else. You don't need to go make yourself a ribeye like Caileen did last night. And that's fine. If that works for you and that's the choice you made and that's the diet you can stick to and you're also getting the results you want, then, who am I to go tell anybody that you shouldn't be eating the XYZ way? And that's what I think, right? So when it comes to, dietary choices, because really that's what it is, right? Those that choose carnivore diet or keto diet or any of the other millions of diets, and they're like, oh, no, I can't have this, can't have that. That's a dietary choice. It's not a requirement, right? You don't have to choose a certain diet to survive. We know that based on the fact that people are alive all around. Go walk into a Walmart, folks. Any of you out here, okay? If you got free time today, go hit Walmart, even if you don't want to buy nothing, and go look at all the people in that store. And I tell you what, wide variety of diets going on. Just go stand in one aisle and wait and just fucking stand there like a scarecrow. It's that time of year. You could stand there like a scarecrow and just watch what people buy out of that aisle. Nobody's coming to that aisle and buying the same things. Everybody's getting different things. So we already know different dietary choices. You're not going to die, at least instantly, from any choices you make today, right? So at the end of the day, again, it becomes what is most optimal, which becomes what can you do most consistently and most often, which is also feeding your health, your wellness, and your goals in life. So when it comes to that, I ain't worried about it. I mean, I've thought all the time, I'm like, I would really love to do an experiment, but I don't really know if I'm allowed to, so I don't think I can, where I take, a group of vegan people and a group of carnivore people, and I put them on the same macros and put them on the same things and try to control all the variables and see what the outcomes would be. And, both, I'm going to piss off both camps right now. I bet you the results are the same, folks. I bet you that a lot of things happen in the same way. As long as somebody can actually stick to it and be consistent with it, the same things will happen. Okay. And, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not. Whoever wants to do the study, if you got a way to do this and you're legit, hit me up. Let's figure it out because I'd love to do it. I'd love to see it. But again, dietary choice, if you make a choice and you stick to it, there is a result every time. It's either the one you want or the one you don't. So then it just becomes figuring out the path of which one is the best one for you. And, it's not uncommon, folks, too. Just to throw this in, even though I've been ranting a lot here, if you've chosen a certain camp, it's okay to leave the camp. Okay. So if you've become vegan and then you're like, you know what, I'm done being vegan after X amount of months, years, whatever. I might want to go back to eating this, but now all my vegan friends will hate me. Fuck your vegan friends, folks, right? Like, that's what I'll tell you then. Move on. Seriously. You got to do what's best for you. Same for carnivores, right? There's people that go carnivore and they're like, I don't want to be carnivore anymore. I got to eat carbs. And whole carnivore community is like, I'm going to destroy you then. So it's, again, same thing. Your diet, your choice, your life. Doesn't matter what people think on the internet. Doesn't matter what your friends think, your mom thinks, or anyone else. Whatever you got to do for you and your goals in your life is what's most important. And I doubt that any of you have really figured that out yet. That's what I'll say, because everybody, your life is a cycle of trying to figure shit out, and then who knows? That's it, right? So That's how we do it.
Yeah, and I will say something about the vegan diet is, I did go vegan for like a month to try it out because I like to try to do these different things that I know my athletes would be doing. I got so much fiber in that month, man. I was pushing 60 grams of fiber. I was like, damn, which obviously was a bit of an adjustment in the GI department. But after I got adjusted, it was great. We don't eat enough fiber as, a whole. And, carnivore people might come at me and say we don't need fiber. I disagree with that. But, neither here or there. But yeah, you can get a lot of fiber in if you're vegan. So that's good. Great for your gut microbiota and so many other things. So
exactly. So, it's one of those ways that if you chose that path, that's the path you choose, folks. And that's how you do it most optimally. Now let's move down our list here because we're getting crazy. I think we had a lot more of a list, but there's a lot going on in this episode today. Where are we at next? What's next on the list here? What part of the list are we in?
Exactly. I'm just going to throw in when I'm traveling, one thing I like to bring that I don't eat all the time, but is a good source of traveling protein is the cans of chicken, tuna, jerky, these types of things. They are great in a pinch, but I would not want to eat them. I would not want you to eat them every day. For so many reasons. Cans of chicken are beyond suspicious. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. They are very good though. I don't know why. I mean, I was known back in the day to smash a whole can. A whole can is 50 grams of protein. So
no problemo.
Yeah. I mean, I think I talked about this on the podcast once. I was in some fancy New York City restaurant on prep in between 2 shows. And I went to the bathroom and drained my fucking can of chicken in the bathroom and, ate it out of a can like a
That's
fucking psychopath. But I mean, I do recommend it to clients who either travel a lot or maybe they're just having a hard time. They don't like meal prepping. I mean, it's all where you're at. Like we said, if this is what gets you to hit your protein goals, so be it. We just want to try to work to get a little bit more of those other options in there, because I think the only ingredient in the chicken is mechanically separated chicken, which is, maybe in a certain percentage of water, but mechanically separated chicken also sounds, very suspicious. So let's throw meat sticks in here too, in the mix. They are protein. I will say for some of the meat sticks, they tend to have a bit of fat to them too. So sometimes it's the fat and the protein are equal. So you get to a point where it's okay, yes, you're hitting the protein, but killing your fats by eating 12 Slim Jims for your protein goal.
What is a Slim Jim? That's the real question.
Mechanically separated pork, I think.
Search. Yeah, my dad used to say Slim Jims was lips and assholes. That's what he always used to tell me. So he's you shouldn't eat that. That's just what that. And I was 5. I was all right, Dad, I don't know anything about this. And my parents are vegetarian too, folks. So there you go. There's a caveat. Point is, so what are we calling that? Processed meats? Is that what we're calling it? Processed meats?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you know, because you can also find degrees of this, minimally processed versus, you know, heavily processed maybe. But either way, you know, there's a lot of things to say when you're looking for protein. Who's never gone into, again, let's talk about 7-Eleven sponsorship. Somebody hit me. Okay. Just kidding. I don't even think I have one in my town, but I know they exist. Who has not been on the road and gotten a bag of beef jerky because you knew you had to hit, you know, some protein goals? Who hasn't? I mean, if you've been into fitness, you've done this. It's a way. And if you look at the ingredients on a jerky, most of the time you're horrified, right? You're like, what the heck did I just actually eat? But you know what? I ate it because it had that 30 grams of protein, something I needed right there, right?
And the 5,000 grams of sodium.
Yeah, you had like 7 days worth of sodium. You're sitting in your car driving to the beach or whatever, just fucking bloating out, just swelling. You're like, why am I so dehydrated? You're turning into beef jerky. That's what's happening from the inside out. You're turning into beef jerky. So, but again, you know, is it the most optimal? No, but can you do it? You know, yeah. And especially in a pinch, that's better than you grabbing that, you know, that pizza that's been sitting up at the front of that gas station, just waiting, or a Slurpee or whatever else. People
Cheetos that are tempting you, rolling on.
Yeah, what? I don't even understand what's in. Somebody should run a study on what's in those things. Because I mean, I went to the same gas station once, like 3 days in a row, because basically it's a long story, but whenever I put gas in my car, the pump always turns off. It doesn't keep going. There's something wrong with the gas pipe or whatever. So it puts it in and it goes like for 4 seconds, it turns off and annoys the shit out of me. So I only get micro amounts of gas ever. I'm like, fine, just enough to get to the gym. I'm out of here. Okay. And then I come back, got to do it again. And I went in 3 times because the damn card reader was broken the whole time. And they had the same, I swear, because I'm looking at the taquitos waiting in line for some guy to buy his Doritos in front of me. And I'm just seeing these things. I'm like, these have not left this thing in 3 days. I'm pretty sure. And they're just sitting there, just getting darker and darker by the day. It looks like a competitor going into peak week, just getting darker shades every, there's the Thursday tan. There's the Friday tan. Oh, there's the comp tan glaze. And that was a taquito, folks. So again, not the most, it's still better to eat beef jerky over that thing, right? So that's what I would say. Now, moving down our list, where are we at here? Are we into like, what are we in? What zone now?
We're in the not as good, I would say. Not as good.
Not as good. Okay. And what's first on the not as good list?
The protein powders, protein bars. You know I'm going to attack those as a former protein junkie. They're great in a pinch. But as we've discussed many times on this podcast, especially the protein powders, who knows what the fuck is in those, man? Like, it is so not regulated. And whey protein powder generally tends to not jive with people to begin with. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'll go to the plant protein powders. Maybe that's a better choice for me. But here's the catch-22 is that a lot of the plant protein powders have been popping high heavy metal, levels for their protein. So it's like, same with the meat. If you can get a super duper clean protein powder to use on occasion, let's go for it. But most of these are going to have sweeteners that are not great for us, those natural and artificial flavors that are not great for us. But man, in a pinch, in gain season, man, I was eating way more protein powder than I wanted, but only because I didn't want to have like 2 mortgage payments for meat. But, I do make sure that the protein powders I do get are vetted very well so that the ingredients jive with me. The sweeteners are ones that, aren't as bad for you. And with the bars, again, they're great on the run. I think there's definitely a hierarchy in ingredients for bars, but also with that hierarchy, I feel like it negatively correlates with the taste of the bars because I feel like the better ingredients, the less artificial sweeteners, the more it tastes like ass, versus God, the Thick Crunch bars from like Robert Irvine, those things are fucking bomb as shit. But
you talked about that several times, so I know you love those.
Man, I remember at 2019 Olympia when we had that booth, they had the mint chocolate chip ones for $5 a box, and I got like a stack this big of boxes. I was like, hell yeah, this cheap ass bitch is gonna buy you out of these. But anyway, they're great tasting.
2 years of protein bars.
That was back in my dark stages of nutrition, though.
Dark stages, the dark ages.
The dark ages, dark stages. I was on the stage too, so it goes, it jives. But yeah, they're great to pinch. When I travel, I make sure, these days, I usually pick up like RX bars. I feel like they're decent, although they're more carby than I would want a protein bar to be and not as much protein. I feel like the ingredients are a bit better. They're not the best, obviously, but I feel like they're a little bit better than, the typical protein bar. But when's the last time you ate a protein bar? Like when you're 5 with the Slim Jim?
5? No. No. It's been a long time. You know what? First, though, before we go into the protein bar journey as much, what I realized we didn't include was anything about dairy. So I think we got to probably, at least I would put that above this category. Would you?
Yeah.
Such as...
put it above canned meats, I would say.
Yeah, well, somewhere in there. It can go right with that, but it's definitely above protein products, protein shakes. Yeah. And in the dairy department, right, like, what are we talking about? What's your favorite dairy source, Kayleen?
Cottage cheese, baby! Oh my God.
Which one you get? What do you get?
I could eat a fucking tub of cottage cheese.
Which one do you get?
Depends what phase of life I'm in. I actually cut out cottage cheese completely when I start to cut my calories because I don't find it satiates me. But in gain season, I was eating a shit ton of the 4%, baby. I was living the high life. Full fat.
Yeah. What about brands? Do you have a specific brand you eat, or you don't care?
So
whatever's cheaper that day? What?
I have a hard time finding a nice, good, clean, organic cottage cheese. Like when I can buy organic, I will. But I don't find it a lot. So with that, I don't even like eat that much of it. And plus, like I tend to try to avoid dairy as much as possible. I don't make it something that I'm eating like every single meal just because I know that it just doesn't jive with me personally, but I still love it because it's fucking delicious. So I've tapered down to, I think the only thing that has some sort of dairy is like when I do add like a scoop of protein powder to something, and I just cut out half and half like yesterday. So, I would do a little bit of half and half in that bitch. But yeah, I mean, Greek yogurt, 0% Greek yogurt is another great one. It's not my favorite because it's boring, but it's a great source of protein. Like one serving is like 18 grams of protein. And sometimes when like I need a shit ton of protein, you get 1 to 2 servings and you put 1/2 or a scoop of protein powder in. That got me through dieting for a very long time. So when I was in my dark stages or dark ages of, hitting my macros, I would always have, a serving of Greek yogurt with some protein powder mixed in there. And that was really like, if you closed your eyes and ate it, it tasted like melted ice cream, in my opinion. So when I was down bad for some ice cream and it wasn't in the macros, I do 0% Greek yogurt with protein powder.
Yeah. I mean, Greek yogurt is on my list of, that goes right with the fish. Get that shit out of here. I am not a fan of that. I've never been, literally never. I remember like even when I first started studying fitness and stuff, everything was like Greek yogurt. And I was like, I tried it and I was like, what the hell's wrong with these people, man? But I know a lot of you love it. So sorry, we can't be friends. It's okay. The truth is though, it is a good source of protein. It is another one of those things. Same with cottage cheese. Same with,
cheese in
general. Yeah, but cheese in general does, like, I know you're going to say, come with a lot of fats, right? That's Kayleen's quote of the day. Comes with a lot of fats, folks. And it definitely does. There's ways to get cheese that has less fats, but a lot of times, again, then we start falling down the process train of like, like I've seen some cheeses that are somehow, they come in a bag. They never come in a brick, and they're always like, "Oh, there's no fat in here. It's all What did you do to that cheese? What did you do to this cheese thing?
It doesn't melt. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it doesn't melt. It does not, and it does not taste right. It's like you're eating wood chips a little, right? It's got like that chewy texture to it. You're like, what is this? It's weird. It's not normal cheese, but it's got a lot of protein. But again, you start going down that list, right? Of like, okay, now I've taken the cheese and it got processed to the point where somehow there's no fat in it. And I don't know what happened, how that worked. Is that most optimal for you? No, right? Like if you're asking me what I would say, the most standard form of dairy is going to be the better form of it in the sense of the minimally processed at that point. But again, it's still not as good as the other areas that we talked about in the hierarchy. Like, you can't just sit down with a brick of cheese 4 times a day and think that great things will happen. Something will happen, but it's probably not your desired effect, right? Like, especially depending on your gut health.
I was going to say, like, most of us are lactose intolerant in general. So it's just like, you know, not going to be the best day. I know, like, anytime Brad has anything in the dairy scheme of things, I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a huge inflammation booster for most people, at least, right? At least. So then you start being like, oh man, that shoulder that I hurt way back, it's coming back. And actually, no, it's the Parmesan, motherfucker. Get that Parmesan at the diet. But again, still good in the mix somewhere. Again, a little bit of balance, throw it in. Don't eat it 6 times a day with, you know, just don't sit down with a block of cheddar and start slicing it onto a plate as your dinner. Right, you know, that's not the best idea. People do it. You know, this is actually funny because we were talking a little bit about carnivores. A lot of carnivores that do not get any results do this because they consider cheese carnivore. And they're like, all right, well, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have a bunch of cheese every time I eat. And you know what happens? You gain fat, folks. Again, you know, calories, all this stuff. And it's not the best. It's not most optimal. So same thing to go there. If anybody wants to say you're on an all cheese diet, and you're listening to the show, please come talk to me. I'd love to. We'll bring you on the show. If you're on an all cheese diet and you're killing it, we'll put you on here and you can interview Caileen. How about that?
Yes. I'd love to get to talk to you. The other thing I'll say too is people who have Hashimoto's or have thyroid issues in general, which is a lot of people, dairy is like the worst thing you can do for your Hashimoto's. In fact, I have an athlete. She listens to the podcast. So hi, I won't name you, but you know who you are. We've been working. She has Hashimoto's, and I said, okay, here are some of the lifestyle changes we can make. You know, if you eliminated dairy, gluten, you know, we could be doing awesome. And since then, like literally she was like hovering here for a while. And like the second she stopped, it was like she even had weeks where she didn't hit her workouts, but she was still losing weight because her body was just so happy to be not inflamed by that shit all the time. Yep. And so we've been doing really, really, really good. And then so like 2 weeks ago, she was like, hey, I think I want to try like to see if I can get yogurt back in the mix. I'm like, yeah, okay, like let's test it out. 2 weeks in a row, yogurt every day. She was up like 1 or 2 pounds. And It was like, we decided this morning, she had her check-in this morning. We're like, you know, how do we feel about like just taking that yogurt out? She's like, dude, yeah, like not only did the scale go down, you know, when we finally took it out last week, but I was like, so did you notice any other differences in your body? And she's like, oh my gosh, I slept better. You know, I was less sore. There was like so many other things that like dairy was affecting her with. So, which is probably why I forgot to even put it on this list. Because again, I just like forget about dairy because I just don't use it that much. But it's delicious.
Yeah, it is. It is tasty. But again, it's almost like in the sense of it should be a treat almost in a way, not a main staple food focused source.
Absolutely.
Because if it is, it does, you know, again, if you're on an all cheese diet, please hit me up. We will bring you on the show because that would be freaking sick. I want to know who you are and what you're doing. But you know what? Something tells me you ain't knocking, right? And nobody's out there doing that. Now let's talk, Caileen. So we went protein powder. I'll talk on that for a second because I didn't get to. And then Are we in the worst? Are we in the worst layer after that? Least ideal. Yeah. Final layer after. So yeah, protein powders, protein bars, protein cookies, protein Cheetos, protein, whatever the hell. I think it's all honesty. In my opinion, I'm going to put it on the worst. I think that's the bottom of the barrel. I think, you know, like Caileen said, she's used it. People use it. A lot of fitness industry use it, right? I was actually thinking about this the other day when I was sitting here staring at the ceiling, stirring my thoughts about tilapia and salmon and everything else. I was thinking about, you know, like the fitness expos when you go and how unhealthy a lot of the practices are actually there. Because I was thinking about, you know, energy drinks because, you know, guys, Coach Ry had an energy drink problem back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Not as bad now. But, you know, back in the day, I definitely did. I used to go to the Arnold. I used to go to Olympia and do these things. And I would go to every booth that was giving out these free energy drinks and drink as many of them as I can, pre-workout shots, whatever. And I would, you know, I'm no stranger to like 7-8 bangs in a single day, folks. It's happened. It's true. Happened. It's true. People think it's not. It was multiple grams of caffeine a day, not milligrams. And they should have studied me. Anybody, you know, I can't do it now. I'd probably drop dead tomorrow if I did that now. But point is, that's normal to do at these things. I was not the odd person out doing that, or the odd person going to every booth and getting every protein bar, every protein cookie, every protein, because all these companies want to sell their stuff, which, granted, good for you, do what you want to do. But the point is, that's not necessarily the best thing to, promote health and fitness, is to say, yeah, let's caffeinate, let's pre-workout, let's supplement, let's give protein powders, let's do these bars. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? So a lot of the stuff that you end up getting, in the supplement industry is honestly meant to sell shit to you. Like, that's the way you should look at it. It's not that it's supposed to be the most optimal. It's not that it should be the best. It's going to oftentimes be the quick fix, in a sense, where you can say, okay, I really want a cookie, but instead of Oreos, I'm going to have a protein cookie and it's better. And then you think that, okay, now it's good to go buy the $50 pack of protein cookies and eat that every day to save yourself from the cookie fix, where I would say, why don't you figure out why the cookie fix exists and start working on that and figure out the mental side of that or the physical side of that and correct it, versus getting the cookie fix. And the same with protein powders and everything else, right? Like, I hear from clients all the time over the years that are like, oh no, I got to have my protein powder. It's the sweet thing in there that I need. I got to have it. Okay, great, whatever. But what are we looking at here? What's going on with the other food choices, right? That is making you need sweet things to that degree, which, again, this goes far beyond what we can talk about in a podcast, because every single person is different. Mm-hmm. The fact Caileen loves Oreos, I don't know. I mean, I don't love Oreos, and we're two same human beings in the world, living our lives, doing different things. So there's differences to every single thing that's involved, but also there's the point to make. There's still going to be optimal versus not optimal. And I think if you always focus more towards the optimal side versus least optimal side with any food choice, including protein, you're going to do better. And you almost do find that a lot of these things go away. Like, how did I ever get to 8 bangs a day, you guys? How did I ever start doing that? It was with 1. So if I didn't have the 1, would I have ever gotten to the 8? And would I have kind of fallen into this perpetual pattern of caffeine, no caffeine, right? That I needed to get to 8 eventually to even. So then you start to think, okay, is the cookie doing that? Is your protein cookie the gateway to the next protein cookie, or the gateway to the 3 in the night that ended up you ate the whole box, or right? It starts to go into this zone where the unhealthy becomes healthy because you put protein in front of it. And that doesn't really work in any good level of a sense. You can sit down and say, well, at least out of that 480 calorie cookie I ate tonight, at least there was some protein.
There's
You're
15
fucked.
grams. Yeah.
You're fucked. That's it, folks. You're not getting it's going to lead. And oftentimes, too, what ends up happening is that, this, Caileen, if you've eaten these protein bars enough, you've had these, shakes enough, you get these artificial ingredients, these artificial sweeteners. You start to mess up your gut health. You start to then crave things to a higher degree. And then you start to say, okay, now the protein shake isn't doing it. Now the protein bar isn't the fix anymore. I got to get the real thing. And now you're binging on a real freaking box of cookies instead because of all these cravings you've caused from the artificial stuff. So again, every now and then, sure. And if you have any of those things that I just mentioned, just stay away from it. Find a way to get away from it, right? Caileen, what's a hack you have? Have you ever had a client that you had to help them remove something from their diet because you just knew it was derailing them and they couldn't get away from it?
Oh, yeah. It happens so much. And, sometimes, people don't even know this, but, diet soda is another huge one. It's, not that, diet soda's bad, in comparison to drinking a full octane one. But I do feel personally, because I had a diet soda phase too. I had a big diet soda phase when I came off of drinking alcohol. It was to fit in, I would, put my diet soda in a koozie and, drink that. And I felt like, I was fitting in because I had my, whatever. But I 100% believe that when you drink these types of things and it gives you that fake sugary thing, it makes you crave the real thing more. Yeah. When you can just absolutely forego. There we go. I'm having trouble with my words today. Woo! But if you can forego having the sweet things in general, which is harder, but it is possible. And there's so many real food things that taste good that you can fit into your macros that are real ingredients. There's tons of things that you can do. I've told a couple of my clients a little Whole Foods Snickers bar. Now, if you eat a ton of these, obviously you're going to gain a whole bunch of fat, but like if you've ever, like, dates look fucking disgusting, but they're so fucking good, man. If you like take a date, cut it open, put some peanut butter in there, melt some dark chocolate, dip it in there, you know, freeze it. Like, you could have a real food, like fucking Snickers bar that's like not even processed, if it fits in your macros, of course, but like whatever you're craving in real life, sugary, whatever, there's something that we can find in a healthier version of that we can do. And of course, but also, if we are craving sugary things, it is probably a gut issue. You do probably have bacteria or yeast overgrowth because those feed off of sweet things. So if, you know, the bacteria is looking to grow, it's going to make you crave sweeter things more intensely. And that's something I found, I think I've talked about before on this podcast, that like once I got my gut balance, I was like, oh shit, like, because I'd be scrolling Instagram and I'd be seeing these things and I'm like, I need that right now. And now I see it and I'm like, yeah, okay, that looks like it might be good, but almost that looks like it would be too much. And I'm like, wait, who am I? Like, what happened?
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that even these healthy supplement foods, whatever, blah, 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 quote unquote, healthy foods are terrible. You know, like keto diet's another huge, it's one of the other biggest diets in the world beyond just macro tracking, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they got a whole aisle of keto stuff at every store that is garbage. Okay. So again, every diet has these types of things. Every single industry has them. They got like protein, macaroni and cheese for bodybuilders. And hey, you know what? Honestly, if it's coming to that, what I would tell you is just go eat the damn macaroni then. Eat the real fucking macaroni. It probably has less bullshit ingredients in it than the one that you're finding at the protein store, at the supplement store. Like, I'm not kidding. Maybe we need, Caileen, compare that. Take a note. Next episode, get us the macros and the ingredients on a normal macaroni, and then go find one of the protein ones, and we won't name brands and stuff. And let's just look at the ingredients and the macros overall and talk a little bit about it, because again, it is the trickery, it is the mimicry, it is the smoke and mirrors of the industry that wants to sell you things. And, you know, artificial sweeteners, as Caileen said, a lot of times can kick off cravings. Well, it's interesting that they exist in all of the diet foods. Is that because it's the best way to do it? Or is that because they know every time you eat it, you're going to come knocking again, right? Like, why does the diet soda industry, as we just talked about, use certain artificial sweeteners only versus others, right? Is it because, oh, it's the best, it's the cheapest, it's the most optimal, it's the one that there's so many artificial sweeteners, and there's really not, you know, there's natural ones more so that come from plants, whatever, versus chemically made ones. And I think that there's something to say for the fact that and I'm going all day on this episode today, but I think there's something to say for the fact that maybe they want to use certain ones because you drink it and then you have it and then you crave it and you want it back and then you go again. Same with your protein powders. Guess what? It's the same sweeteners, folks. In most of your protein powders out there, in most of your protein cookies out there, in most of your protein bars, it's the same damn artificial sweeteners that are in these diet sodas. So you look at one of these things and you say, no, probably shouldn't have that. Diet soda bad. But then you look at your protein bar and it's got the same, it might even have more of it, folks. It's crazy to think about, right? So how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole before you realize that, you know, the answer becomes obvious? The more minimally processed we can get foods, the more, you know, quote unquote natural, not natural flavorings that's in the Oreos, the more, you know, that we can get in these whole states of the way things are before we have messed with them, which honestly is nothing anymore. So that's crazy. But the more you can do that, the better you're going to be, the better you're going to feel, the better your results will be. And, you know, if you feel great, don't get me wrong. If you feel great, macking down 7 protein bars a day and you're hitting all your goals and you feel great and you love it and you're going to the gym feeling great and you're sleeping great and you're eating great and everything's good.
No joint pain.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's a fucking short time. It's a small time for you folks. It's like me with 8 bangs a day. Like, oh, I can do so much work. I should go to the gym 4 times a day. Boom. It ends all eventually, folks. It does. So, you know, you got to figure out where you're at in your journey and what matters most. And sometimes that's compliance. And everything on this list that we talked about today, even if it's the worst, bring it. If you got to get compliant, you're going from 0 and you got to start with anything. Okay. Eat 7 protein bars a day. I don't care if that works for you to stick on your diet and actually hit your macros. go for it. And then as you grow through your phases of your diet and your evolution in fitness, you can phase things out. You can go to 6 protein bars a day, and then 5, and then 4, and then get rid of them, so on and so forth. Everybody's had to do this. I've had to do this. Kayleen's done this.
For sure.
We help clients do this, right? Like this is what becomes fitness, and having a coach and having goals is figuring out how to get the best out of your goals and take away the worst, right? And that's really what it becomes.
Yep. Yeah. And again, as we've said many times before, don't compare yourself, your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 27, like it's all a process, but hopefully, this helped. We had a few other things, but I know we're hitting the hour mark. I did not expect this to be an hour podcast. I thought it would be like 30 minutes, but here we are with our little side rants. I don't know.
Throw in the last little bit. So what is this? You would say this is the worsties for you, the least optimals?
The fake meats that you get at the store, Impossible burgers, things like that. Those like freak me out. I've never actually had one, but I don't think they're great. I too many things going on. It's like, if you want that, you either, just like the artificial sugars, you either go without it and be like a grown-up, or you do the real thing with the meats. That's how I feel. Like, if you want like something that bleeds like a burger, just eat a fucking burger, man. Like, that's my opinion about that. I guess there's time and a place for it, but whatever. Peanut butter and nut butter's not a great source of protein. I know it's been probably hammered on all the channels, but the fats are more than the protein, and although it's delicious, it's also a high source of omega-6s, so too much peanut butter could be leading to other problems like joint pain and a host of many other things. So eggs, we talked about, get good stuff, but yeah, they don't have as much protein as other things, so it's like, oh, I had 5 eggs for breakfast, so I can have a croissant because I had my protein. It's like, well, that wasn't that much protein, really. Like 5 eggs. I don't know. So to go where you're going. Basically, our last tier, you guys, for those of you listening, is high protein foods that may be high on the scale of protein, but also not optimal for hitting protein goals. Meaning they contain a lot of other macros that often, when you're dieting or paying attention to, you wouldn't necessarily want to waste, right? So this kind of does even boil into the supplement rant I just went on to, where you could talk about that, like, oh, the protein cookie, it's 500 calories, but it's got 15 grams of protein. Okay, it may have like anything in the store that says high protein, it's a scam. It's a fucking scam, you guys. Check
don't
the facts.
do not buy it. Do not even look at it. Throw it on the ground. And then, you know what? When the cashier guy comes over and like, why did you just throw these tortillas on the ground? You say, you know what? Coach Ry is going to pay for it because they fucking suck. It's fake. It's a scam. Okay. And I will, because you know what? Tell them to invoice me. Teamflex.com. Go to my website. If you threw the tortillas down that said high protein, because at the end of the day, these are all marketing. There's a lot of marketing in food and supplements and everything else to try to trick people, because everybody goes, oh, I want to lose weight. High protein. Okay. They said high protein. Good. And that's as far as you went. Now you go to the store and high protein. It's on everything. Or low fat. That's the other thing, right? Like any of these foods doing this, just know you're getting scammed right away. You're getting scammed. They want you to think that you're supposed to eat that. And that's what happens. So again, these sources like peanut butter things, if somebody's eating peanut butter and saying that that's for their protein goals, it's not right. It's
there's
off.
Better choices.
You can fit it in. You can fit anything in, right? It's just not going to work. And like Caileen threw eggs in there, which I wouldn't throw eggs in the lowest tier at all. I'd throw those much higher up, but you'd have to have room in your goals for them, right? Like if you, because like if I eat eggs, I'm eating minimum 15 eggs.
Oh my God.
I'm not even kidding. Jesus. At one go. So like if I eat eggs, it's 15 fucking eggs. And like that's
a lot of protein.
But it's also a lot of fat, right? That's like 4 days worth of your fat. So again, it's gotta fit your goals and what you're doing and why and everything else. And so that's the other thing. Like you got to remember too, even listening to our podcast, hopefully we gave you a lot of ideas, a lot of insight, a lot of things to think about, but we're not telling you what to do. We want you to take this information, think about it yourself, come up with your own best answer. Like if anybody's out there taking hard stances on anything, it just proves that they know nothing. That's what I think, because at the end of the day, everything does work in some ways for something, for some reason, for some person, for that. And it's all things you wouldn't understand, you know? If you really think about going to even the gym and you look around the gym and there's 100 other people in there or whatever, all those people are there at the gym to exercise for whatever their fitness goal is. However, they're all doing something different probably to get there, right? And they all have a different life where they have a different job and they have a different path they take in their car to the gym every day and everything else that ultimately cannot be duplicated. So if you look at your favorite pro on Instagram, you look at your favorite influencer, you look at your favorite coaches even, or, you know, people that come out here with all this information, you can't absolutely do this. You're looking at the wrong shit, because really what you should be doing is just taking in information that you know and then coming to conclusions for what works for you. And if you can do that, then you get results and you win. That's called fucking winning. And then all of a sudden everybody else is looking at you and saying, oh, well, I should do what Caileen does. And then Caileen gets to turn around and say, no, you shouldn't, because you should do this instead. And that's how you actually get there, folks, because that's what it takes. So hopefully today, you know, we're not demonizing no foods. We're not doing any of that. We're talking about ideas to hopefully draw you closer to your conclusion.
Yes, it is great. So, yes, let us know what you want to see next time. Let me know what you want me to eat, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks.
Later.
Bye.